You're listening to Agile Ideas, the podcast, hosted by Fatima Abuchi. For anyone listening out there not having a good day, please know there is help out there. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Agile Ideas. I'm Fatima, CEO at Agile Management Office, Mental Health Ambassador, and your host. This podcast is made possible thanks to Agile Management Office. We help businesses solve challenges around project delivery and governance using 20 years of proven practice. Think of us as your delivery enabler, whether it's uplifting your team's experience through coaching or workshops, or helping to put together a roadmap to help you make change stick. Think of us as your delivery enabler. In today's episode, I am going to be talking about 10 years in business and the lessons that I have been experiencing over those 10 years. Unfortunately, if I was to go through all of the lessons, I'd probably need about 10 hours just to cover off maybe 1 month or 1 year of being in business. So I thought I would distill it down into 10 key lessons that should be very beneficial, I hope, for you guys as well, helping you whether you are thinking about starting a business, whether you can consider yourself already a business owner, or perhaps you work in corporate and doing so, there's some of these lessons might be beneficial for you too. Remembering I have spent almost 20 years in corporate as well. So many of the lessons will be beneficial, I hope, in both facets. So let's get straight into it. Lesson number 1. If you have an idea or a passion or a hobby that you want to take to the next level, just start. Lesson number 1 is just start. You got to start somewhere and you got to follow your passion to figure out what exactly it is that you end up doing. Now, when I started my first business 10 years ago, I did that primarily to move out of the world of corporate contracting and becoming my own boss. I had no idea what was going to follow, what was going to happen, and I really didn't have a clear vision for what I wanted to provide. All I knew was that I liked to do projects, I loved to do events, and I also felt that I was okay at consulting. So I decided to start a business, and that first business effectively was a little bit of a trial and error. I identified that I wanted to do something, and the very first thing I did was have a website created. Now, I'm not suggesting that's the first thing you need to do, but at that time, not knowing any better, I thought that it was. So I invested a lot of time in having a student from a university working with me to help me create a website. Doing so, it was actually really important to help me formulate further what the vision around the first business was going to be. Now, this is well and truly before Agile Management Office days. And so I didn't expect to have all the answers, and I absolutely did not. But what I did do is use a key Agile principle, and that is by incrementally rolling out new changes to the business in an iterative way. So you start small, momentum guides you, and as long as you're following your passion, you'll be able to figure out what it is that you want to do. From when I first started in business 10 years ago to where I am today, my business vision, goals, and mission have completely changed from where I was. In fact, when I started my business journey, I didn't know if I was going to sell children's clothing, run events, do something in the fitness space, do consulting. I was all over the shop. And no wonder it showed, because my first business really didn't go where I thought it was going to go. In fact, I had to completely take a 360 and evolve the business to make it where I am today. So lesson number 1 is just start and then let momentum guide you. Lesson number 2, secure a mentor. So one of the first things I did beyond creating a website was securing a mentor. Now, the market is absolutely saturated right now with the number of coaches and mentors and people that are really happy to take your money and supposedly guide you or coach you or mentor you. There's some really great mentors and coaches out there, But as you can appreciate, with such a saturated market, it makes it really challenging to find out where exactly you would find that mentor. Now, I will say that there are a lot of times in my career where I've requested mentorship from certain people, and in some instances, they were unable to give me that commitment, which I completely respect. And in other instances, I was also being asked to be a mentor, which again, I, in many instances, have not had the time or the capacity to be able to provide the person the energy and time that they would deserve and need. That being said, I've been both a mentor and a mentee. So getting a mentor early is really important. And there's a number of different ways you can do that. One of them might be looking at someone within your network that you emulate, that you perhaps see as following or heading down a career path that makes you excited, that is a career path that really could potentially benefit you and is something that you can imagine doing yourself. And so that would be one of the options. One of the other options, which I did, is I looked for government support because it was my first business and I didn't have the money to spend. I went through the small mentoring business service that our state government offered. And I was very lucky because I found a really great mentor. And that mentor has been with me now for the full 10 years. So it'll be really interesting to see the journey that I've been on, and getting his perspective on things might have to be an episode for another time. But having a mentor up front has been really, really important, and getting that mentor as cost effectively as possible, if not free, would be really beneficial for you as well. But securing a mentor is someone to bounce ideas off. It's someone to help guide you. It's someone who has been in your shoes. I would not be going for a mentor or a business coach or someone that hasn't got tangible, proven results that they can show you. Ask them to showcase you how they've helped businesses or how they've mentored people and helped them to succeed. Don't just go with any mentor. Do your research and make sure you find the right one. So lesson number 2 is securing a mentor. Lesson number 3, do your research. Doing your research is absolutely critical if you want to have a business that goes anywhere. And one of the most important aspects of research, if not the most important, is listening to your customers' feedback and adjusting. Now, a lot of the time you might hear suggestions that, looking at what competitors are doing and, looking at the things that you want to do and focusing on researching that. But at the same time, if you have a product, no matter how amazing you think the product is, if a customer does not want to buy it, that means the product probably isn't as good as you think it is. Or maybe you're not marketing and advertising it very well. So doing your research and, most importantly, listening to customer feedback and adjusting along the way. For example, when I was early on, about 10 years ago, within the first 12 months or so, I joined a number of business networking groups. And when people asked me what I did, I told them that I helped with project management. And I took the lessons from big business and I helped to provide those lessons to small business. Unfortunately, though, knowing what I know now, had I been a small business owner 10 years ago, I may have known this and saved myself many years of heartache and effort. But I didn't realize that a small business is probably not going to be able to afford the services of a consultant who's worked in big businesses. Let's be honest, the fees and charges are very different. So doing your research, understanding your customers' wants, needs, pains, and gains to really be able to ensure that what services or products you are offering is going to be beneficial for your customer and provide value. If you don't do your research, whether it's on, if you're having challenges around marketing, research on marketing. If you're having challenges on sales, research on sales. If you're having challenges in human resources, if you're having challenges in auditing, if you're having challenges in finance, whatever is your challenge, the world is your oyster and there's an abundance of information out there. I've learned a lot of what I know in business today from doing research, researching training, self-guided videos, mentoring, but a lot of it has come from doing my research. So number 3 is doing your research. Number 4, and this one's probably should be right at the top, is know your numbers. And don't use money as an excuse if you have a passion and an idea. Don't use not having money as an excuse. There is always ways around it. Whether you can apply for micro grants from state government or federal government, whether you can find a partner or you can find someone doing something that you like and maybe you bring the innovation and the ideas. Perhaps you sell some things at a garage sale. Perhaps you save enough money just to put out a minimum value proposition for your product or service. So don't use money as an excuse, but always know your numbers. I was not very good with maths in high school, in secondary college, and I struggled a lot of the time with my financials. And that was a big challenge for me. So I knew that one of my weak points was the numbers. So what that means is I've now developed a process and a system and a team around me that support my numbers. I have 2 accountants that I work with for different purposes and an ongoing part-time bookkeeper. And beyond that, I also track and manage some finances myself, so I can ensure that we are always delivering under budget for clients and managing those numbers closely. As a small business, every single dollar counts. What I learned, it was a big shock for me, is coming from corporate. Sometimes, or a lot of the times, if I'm being really honest, we spend money like, it's running out, especially in some of the larger organizations where it's really hard to, spot the difference. If someone loses $100,000, it's not that big of a deal. I know you're listening to this probably thinking, how could that not be a big deal? That would, you'd get into a lot of trouble, but I can't tell you the waste that I've seen and the inefficiencies at scale and the amount of money that costs. In fact, I've only just in the last couple of years been involved in a program where I actually seen them shut the program down after a period of time and effectively wasted at least 50% of a 5-figure number. So knowing your numbers, investing it wisely, and knowing exactly where every dollar is going is critical if you want to build a business that can scale, and knowing exactly how much runway that you have left with yourself or your team in order for you to continue to do that. Now, if you're a one-person band and you are a single business owner, then it'll be easier to manage the numbers because you don't have to be spending some money on, ongoing permanent resources and things like that. So know your numbers and don't use money as an excuse. Lesson number 5, hire well and hire for culture. Now, you're probably hearing a lot more discussion around culture, particularly in the last few years with all of the remote working that we've had to experience. But before we can think about the culture aspects of it, we need to understand what is the culture we are trying to build for our organization. And understanding that first and foremost is absolutely essential. Why? Because when you go to hire people, you hire people with 2 thinking hats on. 1, you want them to make sure they understand what they need to do. And the what is the tasks and the roles and the responsibilities and how they're going to get their work done and the expertise they're going to bring to the table. But more importantly than the what is the how. The how associated with your culture. What are the behaviors? What's the mindset? What are the principles that you want them to follow? Do you expect them to be collaborative? Are they independent thinkers? Are you expecting them to be bring their creativity? What are the cultural side of things? How do you create a team collaborative environment, a team bonding environment, and make sure that when you bring new people into that you are effectively building a great culture from the start. It's really hard, and I've seen this in large corporate multinational businesses, to unpick a negative culture. I've been in many organizations that I have experienced bullying firsthand, and it doesn't surprise me in some of those organizations because it was something that was recurring in a number of different teams. And so you want to start the culture off right, and you want to hire well. They say that in sports, using a sport analogy, that it takes at least 2 people before you impact the 2 people changing. So 2 people leaving the team and 2 new people coming in before it impacts the momentum of your team. And that also ties into culture. So hire well and make sure you hire for culture. Number 6. So always be branding. So this is around building credibility and trust. Now, I've been in business 10 years, but I've been in the industry for almost 20 years. Can you believe it? It's crazy. But anyway, and one of the things that people may not realize is I have been focused on building brand for more than 10 years. I've been doing it in my corporate career as a corporate professional. And then I've started more just probably in the last 10 to 12 years, really emphasizing, because I knew that there was more to what I wanted to do. So you always need to be branding and building that credibility and trust. Just because you may be working in a corporate environment today and you intend to start a business, it doesn't mean that you neglect the relationships and the network that you have in corporate, because a lot of the time, and it certainly was the case for me, your first few customers are probably colleagues, ex-managers, or people you've worked with before. And it's really important to build credibility and trust in everything that you do, because once you break trust, you can't get that back. And if you do, you're extremely lucky. Building a reputation and building credibility is so important, and it's all about your brand. A lot of the time, people may assume that if they're building a business, the business is the brand. But I want to tell you now that from all of the research I've done and all of the work that I've done, that your brand is yourself as well as your business. It doesn't matter if you're not, Jenny's Haircuts and you're not Jenny, or if you're, the haircut company. It doesn't matter. Both of them need to be branding. And if you don't do that, it means that you're probably going to take a little bit longer to get where you want to go. But also, people want to do business with other people. They don't want to do business just with a business. They want to see and experience the person behind the business. So, number 6, that continues the conversation around networking and relationships. Now, being a female business owner, it is a little bit harder for me to do some of the networking that some of my male colleagues in other consulting companies do. For example, I'm probably not going to take a bunch of executives, particularly if they were male, which a lot of executives are male, out on a golfing trip or on a weekend away, or out to dinners several times a week. As a female business owner, I find that something that may be a little bit more challenging, just because of the sort of the bubble that comes around with that. It's not really necessarily the sort of thing that I feel comfortable doing, but I have absolutely no issues with networking and attending events and having coffees and having lunches, and networking in large groups is just as effective as doing one-on-one and building those relationships. Your network and your relationships needs to be everything from people that are in your mentoring, people that might be coaching you, colleagues, people that you could potentially have working for you. 10 years on in business today, I have people working for me that I met 10 years ago, which is incredible, because the people that I met 10 years ago, some of which were students, I never thought that I would maybe be working with them now, but what are the chances we actually are? We've kept that relationship. So networking and relationships is absolutely critical and really, really important to make sure that you are able to continue to build that and grow that as you grow your business as well. So that would be what I would suggest as number 7. Number 8, actually, before I move into number 8, one other thing that is a tip that might be beneficial is I have a tracking sheet or a spreadsheet that enables me to write down people's names and people that I've met along the way. And I wish I did this 10 years ago, but I didn't. I only figured it out recently. But I track, people I meet and what skills and experience they've got, where we met, and how potentially we could, do something together, whether it's someone I can work with, a prospective client, maybe they offer a service that I could benefit, maybe they're a trainer, whatever the case may be. And so in the last few years of doing that, I've identified a trainer, for example, that has been someone that's worked with us. And having that trainer is someone that I met several years ago. So it's been really positive to do that. So make sure you do that. It'll be really beneficial for you. And then we move on to number 8. So say what you'll do and do what you say. It's really, really important for you to build that credibility and trust, to be someone that does what they're going to say when they say they're going to do it. It's really, really important to make sure to maintain that trust, that you are not only sticking to your word, but also not breaking or burning bridges along the way. In the last, 6 months or so, I've been doing a lot of recruitment work for clients. And it's interesting to me to see how many people have been burning their bridges as in candidates, because the market is really hot right now. The challenge is, as soon as the market sort of cools down a little bit, which I'm almost positive will happen as soon as the borders open a lot more and there's a lot more staff that can come from overseas, it will be much harder. And so burning your bridges is something you don't want to do. I recall once years ago burning one bridge because it was a role that I said I was going to do and I was no longer able to do it. And I regret that immensely, because I felt like I let the company down. And it's something that I've taken into everything I've done moving forward, and I've tried and have not done that ever since. We all make mistakes, but it's really important that we own up to them. And so say what you'll do and do what you will say. Number 9. Now, this one is maybe going to be a trigger word for some people, the word partner or partnerships. The more you grow, the more people want to partner with you. And I'm using sort of quotation marks here, because partnership can mean so many different things. Unfortunately, in many instances, in my experience, partnership has been about how can you or your brand or your business help someone else achieve their goals and objectives. A lose-win situation. And sometimes partnership is about companies trying to convince you that if you promote and sell their product and spend the time to introduce them into your network and with your contacts that you've spent 20 years or however long building, they may just give you 20% cut of the ticket or 5% or whatever it might be. That is not a partnership. That is a relationship associated with sales. It is something that is not long-term. It's not a objective sort of beneficial relationship, partnership, the way that I envisage partnerships are. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some really good opportunities and really good partnerships out there. In fact, I'm in a couple of them now. But a partnership is about a win-win situation. You may partner with a business, you may partner with an individual, you may partner with an investor, but whoever you partner with, do so on the premise that it is going to be a relationship that meets both your goals and objectives. If your goals and the goals of the other individual or company are not aligned, then you're not going to have a successful partnership. Also, don't believe everything you hear. Unfortunately, I've spent so many years in business now, and I've heard so much bollocks and so many things said, and it's, a lot of the time doesn't go anywhere. Partners promising things that may not happen, or, prospective clients promising you the world and it doesn't happen, or being told that a particular thing is going to happen and it doesn't happen, or being told by a partner that they're going to introduce you to X client, or that they want this, that, whatever the case may be. So I'm quite skeptical, if I'm honest, because I've been burnt a lot in the last 10 years, but it's all part of the roller coaster of emotions and the roller coaster that is business. So don't partner before you understand what partnership means. And one of the things I've done is developed out a partnerships framework, and the partnership framework enables me to actually ask the right questions. And that has been through trial and error and learning from the relationships I've had. But ask the right questions in order for me to be able to make an informed decision as to whether this partnership is a prospective partnership that would make sense for me and for our business, for our team, for our culture, for all of those things. And so having a little bit of a framework around that is really important, because then it becomes like a checklist. Just like you qualify sales, qualify your partnerships, and don't believe everything you hear. And number 10. Now, number 10 is by no means the last one. There is, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's probably some 100 hours plus that I could talk to you about. I could probably spend an hour over each of the last 10 years. But just to sort of wrap up the top 10 tips, I want to leave you with celebrate achievements. Celebrate achievements is so important, even if you don't have a team. As an individual who, for many of the first few years of business, I went through the journey of being in business by myself. There is no one to pat you on the back. You have to do it for yourself. There is no one to give you an applause if you secure a piece of work. There is no one there to champion and guide you to celebrate those achievements. So you have to remember to do them for yourself. Now, this ties into the branding. Now, a lot of the time you may see I post a lot about achievements and successes. I also post about the failures and the learnings as well. It is a balanced view, but I do try to focus on the positives, and celebrating achievements is absolutely imperative. If you don't celebrate achievements, then you may lose that momentum that got you to where you are to begin with. So celebrating achievements, whether it's, giving yourself a pat on the back, whether it's spoiling yourself with a massage. Maybe what I did recently as an example is took a little bit of a luxurious break away, which I think many of us do deserve after the last few years that we've had. So whichever way that you find celebrating your achievements, make sure that you do it and take the time to do it. And particularly when you end up having a team, it becomes even more important. Every little win is a win, and you need to never forget that. So there you have it, my top 10 tips for business. Now, I will sort of recap and say that those lessons in business are by no means exhaustive. But to recap, they are: just start and my momentum will guide you. Secure a mentor. Do your research by listening to customer feedback and adjusting along the way. Know your numbers and don't use money as an excuse. Hire well for culture. Always be branding and build that credibility and trust. Build network and relationships early. Say what you'll do and do what you'll say. Don't partner before you understand what a partnership is, and don't believe everything you hear. And never forget to celebrate your achievements. So there you have it, my top 10 tips for business. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Coming up, I am looking forward to speaking to a number of guests that we have planned for the rest of the year. But in the meantime, I also recommend that you check out our website at www.agilemanagementoffice.com for more information on some of our upcoming workshops. We have project management for non-project managers. So if you have teams in your organization, HR, finance, sales, supply chain, and you know that they need to work with projects effectively, but unfortunately they don't have the fundamentals of project management, then let me and my team take you on that journey and help you to help them by picking up the skills. Our last workshop that recently ran for one of the biggest automotive companies in the world was ranked 4.8 out of 5 stars. So I'm looking forward to sharing that. You can find out more on our website. Alternatively, you also have a few months left before the end of the financial year. What are you going to spend your unused budget on? Could we help you put together a ramp down to ramp up plan to help you kick off the next financial year with a bang? If we can help you do that, then reach out to me. I would love to talk to you and show you what that looks like to help move your business forward. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Please share this with someone or rate it if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to follow us on social media, and to stay up to date with all things Agile ideas, go to our website www.agilemanagementoffice.com. I hope you've been able to learn, feel, or be inspired today. Until next time, what's your Agile idea?